70 שנה במכונית, אני נוסע ומביט על מה היה ומה נהיה, ואיך נפשי עוד הומייה מהמצדה של הזריחות, ירושלים בסליחות, מחוף כנרת ואכזיב,
מהמסיבות של תל אביב. אבי חלם והתפלל
לחיות בארץ ישראל. היום ילדי אותי שואל, מה הסיפור של ישראל?
כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב,
ואותך אני לא עוזב.
אבותינו שורשים,
ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות, אותה שכונה, אותו רחוב, תריס ארבנים של יעקב,
אוספים ביחד נדודים בתוך תרמיל געגועים. אדם ונוף מולדתו, חורת קווים בכף ידו, בין התפילות לנדרים
ריחות פרדס של הדרים,
ובעיניה של אמי
תמיד אמצא את מקומי, על הגיטרה מתנגן ניגון עתיק שמחבר.
כאן זה בית, כאן זה לב, ואותך אני לא עוזב.
אבותינו שורשים, ואנחנו הפרחים המנגינות, שבט אחים ואחיות. מבראשית הכל תפור, טלאים טלאים של הסיפור, כמו שתי מילים להתחבר בחוט זהב של משורר. אני מכאן, אני שייך, וכל חבר שלי כמו אח.
אתה פועמת בלבבי, אני מזרח מערבי.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to our annual Jewish National Fund USA Breakfast for Israel in Central New Jersey. My name is Ann Kroll, and I serve as the co-chair of this special event, along with my husband, Adrian. If you close your eyes, but for a moment, you can almost hear the clatter of dishes and cutlery, the alluring scent of bagels with lox, and the aroma of tea and coffee. It does, however, require an active imagination. Although we are coming together in a different way this year, we remain united in our love and support for the land and the people of Israel and the Jewish people everywhere. While there is still so much to be done, it is because of all of you that at nearly 74 years young, the state of Israel is a strong and vibrant country. Before we begin, I want to thank someone very special, you. By joining us this morning and through your contribution, you are supporting the greatest story ever told. It's a story that began thousands of years ago, and today we come together to write the next chapter in our history as we support the land and the people of Israel and Jewish people everywhere. Many people do not realize that JNF USA is an organization led by volunteer lay leaders. Every major philanthropic investment that we make in Israel is guided by us. With that in mind, I would like to thank our incredible co-chairs of the Middlesex and Monmouth County Committee, Barbara London and Phyllis Solomon, along with the president of Central New Jersey Board, Alyssa Russo, for their leadership, guidance, and vision. We would not have been able to do any of this without the valuable assistance of JNF USA's professional staff. Anna Milstein, director of Central New Jersey. Her passion and commitment can't be beat. The entire Central New Jersey Board and Monmouth and Middlesex Committee have done so much to ensure this morning's success. So thank you all. I'd also like to thank all our amazing table captains who personally invited their friends and family to join us for this exciting event. When you become JNF USA lay leader, you don't just invest your philanthropic dollars. You also invest your time and energy in creating a better future for the land and the people of Israel. Finally, thank you to all our generous sponsors who made this event possible. Thanks to you, we remain the premier philanthropic organization for Israel. And now, please enjoy the following video and marvel at all that we have accomplished in Israel together by entrusting JNF USA as our voice in Israel. Take your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
When we are tasked with the impossible, we excel. When people say it can't be done, we do it and more. When we are surrounded by those who seek to do us harm, we choose love. We are Jewish National Fund USA. It began as a dream that one day the Jewish people would return to their homeland. That vision became a reality. This is the land and people of Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. It's time to write the next chapter in the Zionist story. Travel the country and you will see. It is happening. A renaissance in the desert. Coexistence in the Galilee. Ancient traditions in a modern land. Diversity. Inclusion. Employment. This is the land and people of Israel. This is Zionism. This is Jewish National Fund USA. Zionism is starting new communities on barren desert plains. It's growing vegetables where there is no rain. It's solving environmental problems, and it's sharing our expertise with the world. Nothing is easy. At times, our strength and resilience is put to the test. Yet we rise to the challenges and come back even stronger. We know who we are, and we teach it to our children. Whatever comes our way, Zionism ensures that we are never alone. When we remember that we always have each other, nothing can stand in our way. Join us. Let's build a better world together.
Wow, let's all take a moment to absorb what we just watched and appreciate how each and every one of us has the opportunity to participate in making this dream a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, now it is my privilege to introduce to you an extraordinary leader. He is a visionary who is consistently included in the Jerusalem Post's list of the 50 most influential Jews in the world. He is also a gifted executive who, along with his team of lay and professional leaders, is leading the Jewish National Fund USA's billion-dollar campaign and has succeeded in making Jewish National Fund USA one of the top-rated charities in the United States and the leading organization for the land and the people of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Russell F. Robinson.
Rabbi Pon, thank you for that introduction. And I want to welcome everyone to this special breakfast. I wish I was there with you today. First, because the food looks pretty good as well. But I want to thank you for coming together at this Jewish National Fund breakfast, for being part of what you saw earlier in that video. Nothing can stop us. Even 24 months of the pandemic, nothing stopped the Jewish National Fund. You know, over 280,000 people joined Zoom calls. We had over 10,000 people join our virtual missions, and we are going live. We're going live not here, but we're going live to go to Israel. So you sign up, and you have to remember the family, come home for a visit, and come to Israel. And when you come to Israel, you get to see the entire breadth and scope of the work of Jewish National Fund. From Lior, you're going to hear about a vision. It's not a culinary institute that we're building. We're changing the narrative in a place around Kiryat Shemona, in which people have forgotten about, but not the Jewish National Fund. You today have that opportunity to join in changing the narrative and changing the future. The Culinary Institute is a tool to bring 75,000 people to an area in which people were moving from. Not anymore. Jewish National Fund is there. You are there. You can see the breadth and scope of our work all the way from the Arava to the far north. And later you're going to hear from a Caravan for Democracy student who traveled, who was able to see the work not only that we do, but the work of a place called Israel that makes the world a better place. So today, this morning, you get to be involved. It's what you're going to do when that pledge card comes out. Now you think what is that connection? The connection is that you have to decide. Are you part of making the change, or are you sitting on the sideline? You're here. Join us. That is the Jewish National Fund, and with you, nothing can stop us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to introduce you to an extraordinary young man, Patrick Clunan. Patrick is originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he most recently graduated summa cum laude from the University of Pittsburgh in December of 2021 with a BA in history and minors in political science and secondary teacher education. He was a campus leader who served as president of Pitt's Historical Society and a student athlete on Pitt's Division I varsity track and field team. In July of 2021, Patrick participated in Jewish National Fund USA's Caravan for Democracy program, which, since its inception, has sent nearly 500 accomplished non-Jewish college student leaders on a 10-day trip to Israel. During his trip, Patrick had the opportunity to explore the Jewish and democratic country of Israel through meetings with political, cultural, and community leaders from diverse backgrounds and faith. He, like his fellow participants, was selected for Caravan through a competitive application and interview process. Those who visit Israel in the program are required to participate in a pre-trip webinar in the fall and facilitate follow-up campus activities in the spring. I personally had the chance to speak with Patrick and found him to be a very special young man who has now had the chance for himself to understand the beauty, complexities, and importance of Israel. As some of you may know, I support this and similar JNF USA sponsored programs because I believe in investing in the next generation of Zionist leaders, including those outside the Jewish faith, and know how vital this support is given the challenges we have here at home, across the globe on college campuses, as well as in so many other settings. JNF USA is the single largest provider of Zionist education programs in the US and has a proven track record of instilling the love of Israel in students of all ages. We've seen students like Patrick go on to be tremendously successful leaders, both personally and professionally. In the fall of 2022, Patrick plans to enroll in Pitt's Masters of Arts in Teaching Social Studies education program to work towards his goal of being a high school social studies teacher. I know Patrick will take his experiences to inspire students someday, just like he's doing with his peers and others now. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's truly my pleasure to welcome Patrick Clunan.
Imagine seeing the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and walking the Stations of the Cross all before lunch. This is just one example of an average day on my trip to Israel with Jewish National Fund USA. The list of things I saw, tasted, smelled, and experienced were virtually limitless, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you, Drew, for that wonderful introduction and for affording me and my peers the opportunity to participate in such a life-changing experience. I'm honored to represent JNF USA this morning. At JNF USA, we often ask, what's your why? Why did you get involved? Why do you support the land and people of Israel? And why now? I think whatever we do, whether it be in our professional or personal lives, it's so important to always be thinking about our why. With this in mind, I'd like to take a few minutes to share my story and my experiences with JNF USA. Growing up in Lancaster, PA, with an Irish Catholic family with a passion for social studies, Israel has always been important to me. When applying for Caravan for Democracy, I wanted a combination of a religious, political, and historical experience. I can't overstate how significant it was for me and my family that I got to participate in a program like Caravan for Democracy. I went to my cousin's wedding a few months ago, and when the topic of my trip to Israel came up, my normally very talkative family was completely silent. None of them had ever been to Israel, and they desperately wanted to hear about my experience in a place that had such personal and religious significance to them. When I left for my trip, I asked my family if they wanted me to get them anything while I was there. My dad asked for dirt. He wanted dirt that, as he puts it, Jesus could have walked on, which on its face sounds like a silly request. Nonetheless, it was my mission the whole trip. I got dirt from the Mount Beatitudes, from Nazareth, from Jerusalem, and a stone from the Temple Mount. It was kind of a running joke the whole trip that Patrick was obsessed with dirt, and fair enough, it was pretty funny. But to my dad, it was incredibly powerful. To him, the dirt was his first opportunity to put his hands on something real from a place that had been almost mythic in nature. He hand-built a wooden stand to hold glass containers for each of the dirt samples I collected. Later this month, I'm speaking to his religious education class about my experience in a talk he titled Walking in the Footsteps of Jesus. When I went home for Christmas, he joked that if the house catches fire, he's going to grab the jars first. I could and have talked for hours about highlights from the trip, so I'll do my best to boil it down to a few minutes, which is kind of an impossible task. I could tell stories of late nights walking to the ocean in Haifa, finding little shops in Jerusalem, seeing the Gaza envelope, or speaking to journalists about the conflict. Moreover, I saw firsthand the amazing work that Jewish National Fund USA does all over Israel. One project that stands out was an arts project in and around Sderot, a place where large numbers of bomb shelters are a tragic necessity. One of JNF USA's projects in the region enlists local artists to beautify bomb shelters with the goal of making their presence in the community less stressful and frightening, particularly for children. The humanitarian nature and creativity of this project was incredibly moving, and I still get emotional when I think about it. It wasn't just these experiences that were so important to me, but also the connections I made with everyone on the trip that were so powerful. The JNF USA professionals who accompanied us, as well as my fellow college students, and I had so many profound conversations, but also light and fun ones. Everyone was so open, so thoughtful, and so intelligent. All day, every day, there was a feeling of warmth and community. The connections that we made on the trip were powerful, real, and lasting. This trip had an enormous impact on my view of Israel as well. I came into it thinking it was a combination of a mythical place mentioned in the Bible and a militant state. Sure, there is mysticism to many of the religious sites, which are staggeringly common and close together. But really, Israel is a modern nation. It has cities and small towns. It has tech companies and farms. Its people are friendly, approachable, and diverse. Sure, signs of the IDF's presence are around, but the reality of walking through a market in Tel Aviv is far different from the headlines in the media. The trip has certainly had an impact on how I act on campus as well. There's no denying that Israel can be a taboo subject, and I'm far more sensitive to that now. Pittsburgh has a large Jewish population, and I have a lot of Jewish friends. Now, more than before, I set up when someone mentions Israel around them. I notice they preface much of what they say on the subject with, well, I don't support everything that Israel does, as a kind of automatic defense. Now I listen to the tone of those discussions more keenly, and interestingly, my Jewish friends and I have a newfound connection. We have a deeper understanding than other people on campus and have strengthened our trust in each other, and that makes me feel good. I find that social change and adjustment of opinion happens not only in grand, overt leaps, but also in small, minute steps. I have found that I can open people's minds on the subject of Israel with as little as silly stories about my interactions with Israelis, and with the most basic facts that I saw plainly on my visit to the country. Sometimes people just need to hear it from the right person in the right moment. All due humility aside, I am an influential person on my campus. I have connections throughout the entire athletic and history departments, and close relationships with people in power all across campus. People bring up Israel, and when they do, I talk. And when I talk, people listen because they respect me and my intentions. I have discussed Israel and with my friends, with professors, and in classes. I was recently invited to speak to Pitt's Refugee and Immigration Club about Israel, and I will discuss much of what I have here today. Professionally, this experience will have a profound impact on my career. My lessons on the Middle East, US politics, Israel, and much more will be informed by this experience. This hands-on knowledge will have a tremendous impact on thousands of students that I hope to teach over the next several decades. Caravan for Democracy had an impact on me personally, spiritually, academically, and professionally, And on that note, I want to thank everyone who was in any way involved in my experience and for affording me this opportunity. My family thanks you, my future students thank you, and I thank you. People support JNF USA for many reasons. They may be drawn to our work supporting people with disabilities. They may be inspired by the thousands of teens and young people who have found their lifelong connection to Israel through JNF USA's Zionist educational programming or at our high school in Israel. They may be inspired by our work supporting critical agriculture research and development that is helping farmers around the world become more productive and sustainable. Whatever your why is, there has never been a more critical time than today to support JNF USA's philanthropic work in Israel. I support Jewish National Fund USA, I support Israel's future, and I invite you to join me. By now, you should have received a text message and email with instructions on how to donate today to support Israel's future tomorrow. You can also go to jnf.org/donatecnjbreakfast. And please remember, if your company participates in a matching gift program, please notify them of your gift to even further support JNF USA. Our goal today is to have 100% participation in everyone making a gift to the Jewish National Fund USA. Please take a moment now to make your meaningful gift to ensure Israel's future and invest in pro-Israel leadership for generations to come. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce you to our keynote speaker this morning. Chef Lior Lev Sercarz is the chef, spice blender, and owner of La Boîte, a biscuits and spice shop in New York City. He's also the co-founder and chief culinary officer of the Jewish National Fund USA's Galilee Culinary Institute. Sercarz is the author of 3 award-winning cookbooks, The Art of Blending, The Spice Companion, and my favorite, Mastering Spice. He's worked closely with leading international chefs to create some of the best restaurant collaborations in the world, and his products have been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, In Style, Every Day with Rachel Ray, Food and Wine Magazine, and Savour 100. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome co-founder and chief culinary officer of the Galilee Culinary Institute by JNF, Lior Lev Sercarz.
Hey everybody, I'm Lior Lev Sercarz. Super excited to be joining you from Spice Lab in New York for this great event for Breakfast for Israel. We're going to talk about some food. We're going to talk about the Galilee Culinary Institute by Jewish National Fund that we are in the middle of building and hoping to launch early 2023, and hope that I'll see all of you there at some point. So we're going to be doing a little simple recipe that you could do at home with some chard and some chickpeas and tomatoes and some feta cheese to begin. The recipe is available on our website, which is laboiteny.com. So go ahead, check it out there. You can always send us messages if you have any questions about the recipe, but it is there with another 700 or 800 other recipes for you to enjoy. Galilee Culinary Institute, for those of you who are less familiar with it, started in 1997, in my head at least, when I left Israel to pursue my culinary studies in France. And since that day, pretty much was looking for alternatives and how to offer culinary education in Israel. It took me quite some time, as you could do the math, from 97 to 2022. It wasn't easy finding partners who believed in this mission and kind of wanted to get on board. About 3 or so years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Russell Robinson, the CEO of Jewish National Fund, that I'm sure all of you know very well. And within less than 3 minutes, we both shook hands and decided that we're going to do this together, both for our own purposes. We mainly bonded around the idea of food and wine, but really bringing life to the Galilee, where I'm from. I was born and raised in the kibbutz in the upper eastern Galilee, so it's very near and dear to my heart. My parents still have a farm there. And we started thinking about what it is exactly. Is it just a cooking school, a baking school? Is it even bigger than that? And we started building what is now known, as I said earlier, the GCI Galilee Culinary Institute by JNF, that will be built in Kibbutz Gonen, which is part of what we call the greater Kiryat Shmona area in the upper eastern Galilee. And we're going to go into a few details about cooking as I'm going to tell you more about it. So we have some chard, some feta cheese, we have some tomatoes, lemon, a couple of spices, onion, chickpeas, and salt. So pretty easy. These are actually canned chickpeas. You can cook your own. You could use canned chickpeas. I like using canned chickpeas when I don't have time or remember the day before to soak them and cook them. So a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Make sure you're using some pretty good high-end olive oil. It's going to taste better. We're going to add our sliced onions. This is about one large onion or two kind of medium, smaller onions. And so we're going to kind of sweat them in here. You can have a little bit of color. You can just give them more translucent and tender. I'm seasoning it with a little bit of salt as it's cooking. Just like that. Mix it up. And we're going to let this start doing its thing slowly. As this is happening, what I'll do is I'll start chopping my chard. Here I have rainbow chard. You could use regular chard. You can do it also with kale. You can do it with spinach. Will work really nicely. So just a really coarse chop. It doesn't have to be too fine. Chard is pretty tender. So if you're using kale, then I would, at least the stem part, cut it much thinner. So it doesn't take as long to cook and get tender. So speaking of GCI, our idea started with a simple culinary school and became something much bigger because as we were speaking to a lot of professionals around Israel and around the US about education, we got a lot of kind of really good feedback on how some programs were very long. Some programs were teaching a lot of things that aren't necessarily useful for graduates once they go into the real world. And we took all of this in consideration and started thinking about what the word culinary means to begin with, and realized that, this day and age, with food being a very hot topic, cooking is part of it, and baking, of course, but food science and technology, and food safety, and food activism, all of these things are really important things to address. And we decided that at GCI, the three pillars that we're going to really judge everything by will be entrepreneurship, storytelling, and activism. So even if we're making something on sort of like this chard and chickpea dish, what can we learn from it that relates to all of these three things? What is the history and the story of this dish? What is the financial application if you were to sell it at your restaurant? How much does it cost? How much you need to sell it for? And then the activism part is, are we contributing something good for Israel or globally for agriculture, people who are growing kale, processing chickpeas, and what are we doing? Are we composting some of it and all of the above? So this is kind of one quick example. The program is a 12-month program. It is in English. There will be supporting documents in Hebrew. We chose 12 months because we really wanted to make it a really dense, condensed program where 5.5 days a week students will spend a full day, whether hands-on, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's field trips and outings, and then allowing them to go back to either their home country or their cities in Israel and being able to start applying for jobs and positions instead of a longer 2 or 3 year program where oftentimes by the time you graduate, the industry has moved so fast that you're already behind. So we really wanted them to do that. So we have our chart wilting cooking here, and wanted to talk a little bit about the three components of our curriculum, which is 6 months of exploration, really checking out, different types of cuisine, different types of cooking, hands-on or in a lab and outing. So that's 6 months allowing students really to explore what it is they like and seeing what they'd like to maybe major in and pursue. Following that, we have 3 months of what we call engage, where students start spending more time doing what it is that they're passionate about and we think that they have a good potential to succeed in. And then the last 3 months are called create. And that's when really students choose kind of a graduation project that they want to do. And obviously together with our team and instructors, really work on deciding what it is. And every idea is a good idea. If somebody wants to work at a farm for 3 months and really come up with, a new way of composting or harvesting, if somebody wants to write a marketing program for a class, and so on. So we really would love the students to come up with these projects and spend those 3 months, which is their graduation, all along while still taking some of the courses at the school. And important to mention that, aside from cooking and baking and learning things that are directly related to food and culinary, they're gonna do basic accounting classes, reconciling accounts, looking at P&Ls, entering data into accounting softwares. They're going to do purchasing and inventory management. They're going to do HACCP program and safety, and all of that, really preparing them to what's going on outside in the real world, so that even if, at graduation or after that, they're going to start their own business, they'll have these tools to manage them. Because sadly, we saw and met and talked with a lot of culinary graduates that went out and said, I had no idea that this is how you do things, and this is so complicated. Even looking at a lease the first time that you're going to, sign a lease for your new restaurant or your new factory and whatnot. So we want to prepare them for these type of situation, and give them the tools to handle that. So that is another big part of the program. As I said, the school is in English. There's also a lot of great online documents and support. So onboarding will start 4 months even before landing in Israel, where students will get to meet their classmates and their teachers and start taking some online courses, so that we can really spend as much time as we can cooking and farming and exploring things in the area. I mentioned the word farming quite a few times. We do have about 10 acres dedicated to GCI in Kibbutz Gonen, beautiful piece of land, about 5 minutes walk really from the campus. We are working with a young woman in Israel about deciding what crops we're going to have there and what we're going to plant. And the idea that as much as we can, we're going to rely on our farm to supply the produce for our menus, for our classes. A little bit of an overview about what's on campus. So we have 20 rooms for our students, and we're looking into securing more in Gonen itself and in the kibbutzim around the area. So because we're going to have way more than 20 students, so that's not going to be enough very quickly. Then we have 2 main buildings, one building which is being renovated as we speak, where we're going to have classrooms and labs and kitchen, and of course our restaurants that's going to be operated by the students and their teachers, which would be open to the public as any regular restaurant. So we have those in an auditorium, and right next to it we have a second building that's going to begin the build out in a few months. And this building will hold a visitor center, a wine and olive oil bar where people could be tasting of different olive oils from the region and wines from Israel, a gift shop where the products that the students are making, and also food that the students will be preparing, a bakery, a patisserie, and a second floor which is divided kind of equally between our chocolate lab, where students will learn how to make chocolate from actual cocoa beans, so what's called bean to bar approach, and our beer brewery that's being built together with a team from Germany. And students will get a first-hand experience in terms of how to do beer and sour and all of these fun things that will be served at our bar and at the restaurant. So that's going to happen there with a magnificent view of the Achula Valley and the Naphtali Mountain and the Hermon, one of the most spectacular views in Israel, right from the window of both these buildings. So, you want to get the best seats in the house and the restaurant. As for the window view, I mean, all of them are going to get great view, but it's mainly about 20 seats that are facing this valley. Reservations aren't open yet for the restaurant. We've launched our pre-application for the school in the month of August and had not really much idea of how it's going to work. We are beyond overwhelmed with the great response that we've got. We have currently about 20 or 25 students who have completed their pre-enrollment. It takes quite some time. You got to do a video and write a little essay. So 20 or 22 or 23 very serious students who think that GCI is the right place for them. What's also really exciting for us is that we have people from Egypt, Brazil, the US, Canada, and Israelis. Of course, we would not want to have something where everybody is from abroad. We want this connection between people from outside of Israel and Israelis. As I'm explaining all of you, I just added the tomatoes into our stew. I've added the chickpeas and one of our spices called shiba, which is paprika and a little ginger and cumin, and a little bit of chili flakes into that stew. This is pretty much ready with our spices, this beautiful stew. We're gonna top it off with some feta cheese. You could leave it out. This is pretty much the recipe, this delicious stew. I want to thank you all for inviting me to be part of this great event today. I hope to see you soon, either here in New York, definitely in the Galilee. It's a date, so come and see us, the Galilee Culinary Institute, when we are open very soon. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Beth Banks-Cohn, and I am a proud member of both the Presidents and Sapphire Society. I am also the chair of the JNF USA National Makom Task Force and a member of MACOR, JNF USA's Lay Speakers Bureau. My husband Jules and I became active in the central New Jersey region of Jewish National Fund USA around 8 years ago. It is an involvement that has enriched our lives and deepened our connection with Israel. We are both active in the organization in our own ways. As I share our JNF USA journey, I hope you consider ways that you can deepen your connection to this vital organization. Since Jules retired, he has been able to devote considerable time and energy to Jewish National Fund USA activities. He has led many campaigns and raised tens of thousands of dollars for Jewish National Fund USA projects in Israel. There are so many amazing affiliates and projects in Israel. Sometimes it is hard to focus on just one area, but we do. My passion, as many of you know, is the Makom communities. Jules's is the Arava, and last year, Jules joined the Arava task force. The Arava represents a pioneering spirit, a can-do attitude, and building the land of Israel that really caught Jules's attention. The work JNF USA does in the Central Arava really brings to life every aspect of Jewish National Fund USA's mission in Israel. Whether it is community building, water, R&D, education, special needs, or tourism, to name just a few, you name it, the Central Arava has it. In February, Jules reached a milestone birthday. And what do you get a man who has everything? I decided to honor his love for and commitment to the Arava and made a significant donation to the Emergency Response Center in the Central Arava in his name. On our recent trip, we unveiled a plaque with his name on it, creating a permanent and lasting connection to this place. For those of you who may not be familiar with the ERC, the Central Arava Emergency Response Center serves as the central command station for the area, housing both police, medical, and fire personnel, gathering all essential emergency units and allowing a more coordinated, efficient, prompt, and functional response to any urgent event or crisis. The facility brings together volunteers and professionals to protect, guard, and save lives in this remote region, providing them with tools, equipment, and knowledge. Since our involvement in Jewish National Fund USA began 8 years ago, Jules and I have donated about $75,000, $1,000 for each year in Jules's milestone birthday. We have witnessed firsthand the difference our philanthropic dollars make to the land and the people of Israel. We put our trust in JNF USA to be our voice in Israel. This year, I honored Jules in a bigger way than usual, but really, every dollar makes a difference. Today, you learned about a variety of ways JNF USA changes lives, and I encourage you to join me in making JNF USA your voice in Israel. Find your passion, find what inspires you, and I'm sure the more you get involved and the more you support, the more your life will be enriched, just like ours has been. Happy birthday, Jules, until 120.
Thank you all for joining us for this inspiring program. I would like to thank the wonderful speakers we heard today, Russell Robinson, Lior Lev Sercarz, and Patrick Clunan, along with our president of the Central New Jersey Board, Alyssa Russo, and my wonderful co-chair for the Monmouth Middlesex Committee, Barbara London. I would also like to thank our very generous sponsors and each and every one of our nearly 40 table captains. And a very special thank you to our phenomenal co-chairs for this event, Anne and Adrian Kroll. This year, Anne raised her hand and she said, "Count me in." And so from volunteering her time to joining the Central New Jersey Board and becoming a major donor and a Sapphire Society member, Barbara and I were honored to present her with her Sapphire Society necklace, a beautiful tree of life that she now can wear with pride. Thank you so much, Anne, for being such a vital member of our JNF USA family. We have also been very busy at Jewish National Fund USA with our exclusive virtual events and even a few in-person events. It has helped us to maintain our connection to Israel and to you during this time. We have several engaging events coming up over the next few months, including our Women for Israel event, May 3rd in Livingston, New Jersey, featuring Batsheva Marcus, author and clinical director of the largest independent women's sexual health center in the country. Please join us for an unforgettable ladies' night out. Our Conversations on Zionism series continues with episode 16 taking place March 15th via Zoom. We've been waiting so long to finally return to Israel, and I am so thrilled to share that we are going. We have several missions in May, and our Celebrate Israel mission with various tracks on May 19th through 26th, with the opportunity to visit Morocco or Dubai prior to the Israel tour. Finally, please join us for the biggest JNF USA reunion in over 3 years at our Jewish National Fund USA National Conference in Boston, November 4th through 6th. Please be in touch with our director, Anna Milstein, to get more details on any of these exciting opportunities. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
בוא ונסתובב, נשתה קפה על מעקה, ניתן לרוח ללטף, ניתן ליום להתחלף, בוא נלך בכפכפים כשהאצבע תכוון, כי היום גם החיים הם עוד שיר שמתנגן כמו איזה יום יפה, בוא נעצור את השעון ונחיה ביום יפה כמו ביומנו הראשון. איזה יום יפה, בוא נסתובב מחוף לחוף, כי ליום כזה יפה לא ניתן סתם לחלוף. בוא נפתח את הרדיו, נגביר את הווליום לתקרה, ביום של חופש שכזה הסוף הוא רק ההתחלה, אז נרקוד עד אור הבוקר בין עשרות האנשים, כי לא עולים בכלל ביוקר דברים קטנים שמשמחים כמו